Daf Yomi, Tractate Sanhedrin, Daf Daled, page 4. Daf Daled of an Aleph, page 4a, top of the page, with the words Verabanan. With the word Verabanan, Yarshi'an, Yarshi'un Ksiv. And how would the rabbis respond to Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi's proof? They would say that although the term shall condemn is pronounced as a plural verb, it is written in a way that could also be read in the singular. Consequently, one cannot derive a requirement for more than one judge from there. Amar Rabbi Yitzchak Bar Yossi Amar Rabbi Yochanan Rabbi Yehuda ben Roetz Ubeit Shammai. Rabbi Yehuda ben Roetz. Wow, I haven't seen him before. Rabbi Yehuda ben Roetz Ubeit Shammai Rabbi Shimon Rabbi Akiva. Kulahu severe lahu v'yesh em lemikro. All these I've seen, except for Rabbi Yehuda ben Roetz. Rabbi Yehuda ben Roetz. Let's check it out. What's the gematria of that? Rabbi Yehuda ben Roetz is 660 or 448. Okay. The dispute between Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi and the sages is explained as an example of the more general question of whether the written consonantal text or the vocalization of the Torah is authoritative. As Rabbi Yitzchak Bar Yossi says, that Rabbi Yochanan says, with regard to Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi, Rabbi Yehuda ben Roetz, Beit Shammai, Rabbi Shimon, and Rabbi Akiva, they all hold that the vocalization of the Torah is authoritative, and that the halacha is therefore decided based on the meaning of the word as pronounced, and not on possible alternative readings of the written text. So if you say Yarshi'un, then that sound is what it is. Yesh em lemikro. This is a pretty fundamental concept. Yesh em lemikra. That should be gematritized as well. Yesh em lemikra is 722. Okay. Let's see how they translate that. Yesh em lemikra. The vocalization is authoritative. Vocalization is authoritative. I wonder why aim, mother. Yesh aim lemikra. Shema b'nim Musa. Torah simecha maybe. Anyway. Rabbi Hada Amara. The Gemara explains the basis for Rabbi Yochanan's assertion with regard to each of the Tanaim that he mentioned. With regard to Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi, the proof is that which we have just said with regard to the interpretation of the verse, he whom the court shall condemn, Exodus 22 verse 8, deriving a requirement for 5 judges in cases of monetary law based on the vocalized plural pronunciation of the term shall condemn. Rav Yehuda ben Roetz, Tanya, Sha'alu Talmidim et Rav Yehuda ben Roetz, Ekra ani shivim, Yachol tehe yoledes nekeva temea shivim. And with regard to Rabbi Yehuda ben Roetz, It is as it is taught in a Braita. His students asked Rabbi Yehuda ben Roitz the verse, which reminds me, I haven't seen Roy for a while. The verse states, "But if she gives birth to a female, then she shall be unclean for 2 weeks, as in her menstrual impurity, and she shall then continue in the blood of purification for 66 days." Leviticus 12:5. Based on the written consonantal text, I can read the amount of time she is impure as 70 shivim, and not as shivwaim, the same letters. Okay. One might have thought, therefore, that a woman gives birth to a female should be impure for 70 days. Amar lehen timeh v'tiher b'zachar v'timeh v'tiher b'nekeva ma kishetir b'zachar v'nekeva kiflaim av kishetimeh b'zachar v'nekeva kiflaim. Rabbi Yehuda ben Roed said to them, "It can be proven that this is not the halacha, as the Torah deemed her impure and deemed her pure when she gave birth to a male, and deemed her impure and deemed her pure when she gave birth to a female. Just as when it deemed her pure for 33 days after the initial period of impurity when she gave birth to a male, when she gives birth to a female, she is impure for 66 days, which is double the amount of time. So too, when it deemed her impure for 7 days, when that makes sense, you can see, just compare, you see what's most, it's logical that way, right? For 7 days when she gave birth to a male, when she gives birth to a female, she is also impure for double the amount of time. Consequently, the verse must read according to the vocalized reading, 2 weeks, and not according to the consonantal text, which would be 70. לאחר שיצאו יצא ומחזיר אחריהם אמר להן אי אתם זקוקים לכך שבועיים קרינן ויש אם למקרוא. After they left, Rabbi Yehuda ben Roitz went out and followed them. He then said to them, "You do not need this proof that I gave based on the comparison of the periods of impurity with the periods of purity. Rather, we read the verse as 2 weeks, and the vocalization of the Torah is authoritative. So, don't go to such deep comparisons. Just say, Shvuim, 2 weeks. Read it that way. That's what it is. Beit Shammai, Shvuim. Right. Beshamai detanan, Beshamai oimrim, kol hanitanin al mizbeach achitzoin, shenazon b'matana achas kiper, shenemar v'dam zvachecha yishofech, u'bachatos shnei matonois, u'b'shilel oimrim, af bechatos shenatanan b'matana achas kiper." With regard to Beit Shammai, the proof that they also hold that the vocalization of the Torah is authoritative is, as we learned in the Mishnah, Zvachim 36b. Beit Shammai say, with regard to all offerings whose blood must be presented on the external altar, once the blood has been presented with one presentation, the offering has effected atonement, even if more presentations are ideally required, as it is stated, "And the blood of your offerings shall be poured out against the altar of the Lord your God." Deuteronomy 12:27. This verse teaches that even with regard to a burnt offering, which requires multiple presentations of the blood, a single presentation is sufficient to render the offering valid after the fact, But with regard to a sin offering, it is valid only if there were at least two presentations. And Beit Hillel say, even with regard to a sin offering, that when presented with one presentation, it has effective atonement after the fact. V'yomer of Huna, my time of the Beis Shammai, karnois, hare kan sheish, arba lemitzvah, u'shtayim le'akev. And Rav Huna says, what is the reasoning for the opinion of Beit Shammai? The verse states, and the priest shall take of the blood of the sin offering with his finger, and put it on the horns of the altar, Leviticus 4:25. And the priest shall take of the blood thereof with his finger, and put it on the horns of the altar, Leviticus 4:30. And again, the priest shall take of the blood of the sin offering with his finger, and put it on the horns of the altar, Leviticus 4:34, as the minimum amount justifying the use of plural, meaning horns, is 2. One may conclude that there are 6 references to the horns of the altar here. 4 of them are mentioned for the mitzvah, meaning that he should present the blood on all 4 horns of the altar ab initio, and the other 2 were mentioned to invalidate the offering if he did not present it on at least 2 horns. Ubeis Hillel אומרים karnois, הרי כאן 4, 3 למצווה ואחת לעקב. And Beit Hillel say that matters should be understood according to the written consonantal text. The word horns is written one plain, one with a vav, which means that it must be read in the plural. And the other 2 times the word horns and horns are written deficient, without a vav, in a way that can be vocalized in the singular. Therefore, there are 4 references to horns here. 3 of these presentations are written to indicate that they are performed only as a mitzvah, meaning they are performed ab initio, but the offering is valid even absent their presentation. And the remaining one, meaning the 4th presentation, is written to indicate that its absence invalidates the offering, meaning the offering is not valid if the blood was not presented against at least 1 horn of the altar. Evidently, Beit Shammai holds the vocalization is authoritative, whereas Beit Hillel hold the consonantal text is authoritative. Ve'ema kuluhu lemitzvah kaparabich de lo eshkachan. The Gemara asks, but according to this explanation of Beit Hillel, why not say that all of them were written for the mitzvah and none to invalidate? Meaning the blood must be presented on all 4 horns ab initio, but the offering atones after the fact, even if it has not been presented at all. The Gemara rejects this possibility. We have not found anywhere in the Torah an example of an offering in which atonement can be achieved with no presentation of the blood of the offering at all. Rei Shimon D'Tanya shtam kel choson ושלישיס אפילו טפח. רבי שמעון אומר 3 kel choson ורייס אפילו טפח. במאיק מפלגי רבנן סברי יש אם למסוירס. ורב שמעון סבר יש אם למקרו. יש אם למסוירס. What's the Gemach of that? 1087. These are some definite ones we should really put down here. Yesh em l'mesoires and yesh em l'mikro. Okay. good to get those gematrias. Yesh Eim Mikro. Yesh Eim Mesayres. Okay. With regard to Rabbi Shimon, it is as it is taught in the Braita that records a dispute among the sages with regard to the number of walls required in a sukkah. There must be 2 walls in their standard sense, completely closing each of those 2 sides, and a 3rd wall, which, based on a halacha transmitted to Moses from Sinai, may measure even as little as 1 handbreadth. Rabbi Shimon says that there must be 3 walls in their standard sense, and a 4th one that can measure even 1 handbreadth. The Gemara asks, with regard to what principle do they disagree? The Gemara answers, the rabbis hold that the tradition of the manner in which the verses of the Torah are written is authoritative, and Rabbi Shimon holds that the vocalization of the Torah is authoritative. That gets tricky because what if you have different pronunciations? You know? But anyway, Rabbanan Saviyesh Em Meseres Besukos, Besukat, Besukos. Even right now I'm using different pronunciations. If you're Litvish, you'll say Sukas. Sukat. If you're Sardi, Sukat, Besukat, Besukot. Harekan Arba. Dal Chad, Kal Gufe, Pashu Lahu Talat. Atay Hilchata. The Gemara explains the rabbis hold that the tradition of the manner in which the verses are written is authoritative. The Torah states, "You shall reside in Sukkot," Leviticus 23:42, spelled deficient without the letter Vav in a way that can be read in the singular. And later in that verse, it also states, "All that are homeborn in Israel shall reside in Sukkot," spelled the same way. And in the next verse it says, "So that your future generations will know that I caused the children of Israel to reside in Sukkot," this time spelled plain with a vav. Plain with a vav, which means it must be plural. Therefore, there are 4 walls here. Remove 1 verse, which is needed to teach the mitzvah to sit in a sukkah itself, and 3 walls remain. The halakha transmitted to Moses from Sinai, which says that one of the walls may be incomplete, comes and reduces the 3rd, and establishes it as a minimum of 1 handbreadth. Rabbi Shimon savar b'sugos harekan sheish dal Chad Kal Gufe Pashula Arba Asai Hilchasa Galat Levi Yisvekim V'Tefach. Rabbi Shimon holds that the vocalization is authoritative, since the verse states, "You shall reside in Sukkot," and "all that are homeborn in Israel shall reside in Sukkot," and "so that your future generations will know that I caused the children of Israel to reside in Sukkot," all of which are pronounced as plural nouns. There are 6 walls here. Remove 1 verse to teach the mitzvah of Sukkah itself, and 4 walls remain. The halakha transmitted to Moses from Sinai then comes and reduces the 4th wall and establishes at a minimum of 1 handbreadth. Consequently, it is clear that Rabbi Shimon also holds that the vocalization is authoritative. Rabbi Kiva, Detanya, Rabbi Kiva Oimer, Benay Levi is Dam Shiatza Bishnei Meis Mitame Ba'oil Shnemar Al Kol Nafshois Meis Lo Yavo Shnei Nifashot With regard to Rabbi Kiva, it is, as it is taught in a Braita, it is known that a quarter log of blood that came from a corpse imparts ritual impurity in a tent. And Rabbi Kiva says, from where is it derived that a quarter log of blood that came out of 2 separate corpses also imparts ritual impurity in a tent? As it is stated with regard to a priest, he shall not come upon any dead bodies, Leviticus 21:11. The word bodies is pronounced in a plural word, and since the Torah teaches elsewhere that the blood is the life, Deuteronomy 12:23, this indicates that impurity can be imparted by 1 measure of blood, that came from two bodies. And the rabbis say the word bodies is written deficient without a vav, so that it can also be read as a singular word, indicating that a quarter log of blood imparts impurity in a tent only if it came from a single corpse. Maskif lev achabar Yaakov mi ikazolesle yesh em lemikra etanya b'chalev imo yochal b'chalev. Rav Achabar Yaakov rejects Rabbi Yochanan's assertion that all of the above disputes are based on the question of whether the traditional consonantal text or the vocalized text of the Torah is authoritative. Is there a sage who does not accept the principle that the vocalization of the Torah is authoritative? But isn't it taught in a Braita? The verse states, "You shall not cook a young goat in its mother's milk." Bachalev, Exodus 23:19. One might have thought that the verse should read as prohibiting the cooking of the young goat in the fat, b'chelev, of the mother, and there is no prohibition against cooking the meat with milk.